Yeah. I never know what I'm going to get.
All right, so today we're talking about legendary guitar recordings.
Yeah.
And I've got some good stuff.
And I've got some okay stuff for sure.
So we got to make the pitch.
Yeah, the pitch?
Like, people got to subscribe.
Oh, yeah. Like and subscribe, people.
Button.
Yeah.
Push the little button. Because we need more viewers.
Yeah. Tell your friends.
Yep.
If you like what we're doing.
So who's starting today?
I think I'll start. I think I'll start. Let's see.
Okay.
I'm gonna start with so today we're just talking about badass guitar records with kind of no special genre or anything. I'm gonna kind of do an obvious move. I got a couple of them, but this for me is like my Bible of badass guitar playing. It's Jim Hall, and he's kind of known. Here's a nice picture of him with his pick on the back. He's kind of known for his kind of gentle, more soft approach to playing, but he goes all in on this record. It's just in a trio, and he really, I don't know, I can't say enough about it. Like, his chord voicings are so beautiful and modern, and his technique is really in good form here. Sometimes his technique doesn't always catch up with what he's trying to play, but for this one, woo, he plays some really badass shit on here. Very loose, very free. It's kind of like, this is like 10 years before the Keith Jarrett trio records, but he's kind of already going in that direction rhythmically of like the very loose, interactive, like the drums are very bebop oriented, but oftentimes he leaves a lot of shit out and it's very like conversational. So if you want to hear some
improvisational.
Yeah. So if you want to hear some really, really great guitar trio playing, this is the record for me.
Yeah, he's a very understated player.
Yeah.
Which I like.
Mm-hmm.
But if you really like, especially like even his tone is very understated.
Right. Oh, he plays very quietly.
He plays quietly, but he also plays clean.
Yeah.
But if you really listen to his melodies, I mean, the melodies are so precise.
Yeah. And always surprising. Like, when I listen to him, I'm surprised like how few like cliches he has, or he'll start something that's kind of familiar in the language and he'll always throw in something that like is kind of jarring, like, whoa, I wasn't expecting that. So he's unbelievable.
You know what's interesting about him too? He's got a lot of great solo records, but some of my favorite stuff that he's done has been as a sideman.
Sure.
I mean, he's on a ton of records.
Yeah.
Someday I'll dig out a bunch of like side projects that he did. There's just great stuff. There's that guy that calls every week.
You should answer at some point. Put him on
the
show.
Be my mom, So I'm gonna do mine chronological.
Okay.
Okay. Because I got a lot of stuff that goes way back. So this is a record that really influenced me, and I'm still fascinated by it. Obviously, all of the Les Paul stuff was epic as far as technological breakthroughs. I mean, he invented multi-track recording, so there's a lot of that on here. But I also really like Mary Ford's interaction with the guitar parts. I mean, a lot of these pieces, there's a lot of parts. I mean, he was stacking up guitar tracks. Some of them have 15, 20, 25 tracks, but her interaction with the actual instrumentation is pretty fascinating for me. She was a beautiful singer too.
And great ear.
I think tonally nobody's ever come close. I mean, this stuff was just so warm and juicy and, very tape-like.
Yeah.
Because it was all about tape, But I really like the song lineup on here too. Let's see, Vio Condios, Tiger Rag. I really love um, Mockingbird Hill. The World is Waiting for the Sunrise. How High the Moon. That's like the
That's the
classic
classic
version
one.
of that song.
Yeah.
So, you know, I could have picked any Les Paul record and any of them, you know, would work.
Mhm.
But I just like the songs
Yeah.
on this. Just great songs. So, um, this goes all the way back to 1953.
Wow.
So it's what they call a Capitol Rainbow label.
Hmm.
So yeah, basically any Les Paul stuff you see, if you don't know them and you just want to get into it, even reissue stuff, pick it up. 'Cause it's getting kind of hard to find these days. Even the reissues, you just don't see them.
Hmm.
Maybe it's because it's Wisconsin and he's from here.
Yeah.
But it's weird. I have people coming in the store, like kids, and they're like, you know, I expect them to walk up to the counter and go, yeah, man, what do you have for Megadeth? And they, you know, they walk up to the counter and they're like, do you have any Les Paul records?
Wow. That's
You know,
cool. Yeah.
it happens a lot. So it's a part of a lot of people's journey, you know, to understanding recording,
Yeah.
and definitely influenced everything that came after it.
Yeah. Yeah, man. He was cool. Let's see. I'm gonna go with. I think I'm gonna go with. This is the guy right here, man. Andres Segovia. And I think I have a couple of his records. I think this is the one I listen to the most. This is called Bach Chaconnes, because I think that's what he plays on the first side. But he's also got Soar, who I don't know, and Rodrigo. I think that might be referring to what's his first name? I should have done my research on this. Joaquin Rodrigo, maybe. Anyways, and then Villa-Lobos, who was if you don't know Villa-Lobos and you're a guitar player, you should check him out. He was a Brazilian composer. He was kind of friends / rivals with Segovia. They had both very big personalities, and but they collaborated a lot. So he plays one of Villa-Lobos' preludes on here, which is really fantastic. And it's just it's just a great man. He's got such character and so many different sounds and timbres he can get out of the guitar. So this is really great. I mean, but pretty much probably anything you can find by Segovia is going to be pretty epic. So this is
Yeah,
one
he
of my
had a lot of
favorites.
records.
Yeah.
So I'm going to jump to 1960. Jimi Bryant, Country Cabin Jazz.
Mm-hmm.
This is a record you don't see much, but man, this guy was a badass. The term chicken picking, that was invented by Jimi Bryant. Most of the records he did were with Speedy West, the pedal steel player, and Speedy West is all over this. So basically, the ultimate fusion between country and jazz. You know, there was some other guys doing it. George Barnes was one of the sort of pivotal players that sort of helped invent that style, but this guy was way ahead of everybody. And all the later players like James Burton and Albert Lee and all those guys, this is what they were listening to. So this is also on Capitol. It's also a Rainbow label, Capitol. And here's a picture of Jimi. So there's a couple of other records Notice he's playing that early Telecaster too.
Wow.
Pretty cool, eh?
Yeah.
Yeah. Um, there's a couple other records that are excellent, and there's actually a box set of all the Jimi and Bryant, Speedy West stuff.
Mm.
So if you can find that box set, that'll cover all the Capitol
Is that on vinyl?
recording.
Box set?
No,
Oh.
never came out on vinyl. Came
Bummer.
out on CD, but it's decent.
Hmm.
These guys did a couple of 10-inch records too that were pretty cool. I don't know if you've ever seen a 10-inch, basically 10-inch 33.
Oh, okay. Interesting.
Yeah, years ago, somebody walked in the shop with a big box of terrible records. Like they were probably, it was the most Herb Alpert and the Tijuana Brass records I ever saw in one place. Like I literally almost didn't go through the box
Yeah.
because it was also pretty moldy and crusty.
Uh,
Fortunately, the little voice in my head said, "Yeah, you got to look at them all." So down on the bottom, the very last record was a Speedy West and Jimi Bryant 10-inch, which I still
wow.
have, and that was the first one I ever got by these guys, and it was just so cool. And being that these guys played bad records, they had never played that record. Somebody gave it to them. And it's like one of my most prized records.
So when you get
So
a big box like that, do you just like turn them away, or do you just like what do you do with those?
sometimes I buy the whole box just to get a couple really key records.
Yeah.
You know what I
You
mean?
can't just buy like individual ones, or like
Well, you can,
okay.
but sometimes you got to sort of size up the situation.
Yeah.
Every situation's different.
Hmm.
Some people come in, they're like, man, I just got to get rid of these. And when I ended up buying the whole box just to get that Jimi Bryant Speedy West 10-inch,
Hmm.
you know?
Wow. Yeah.
So, yeah, anything you can find by this guy, grab it.
I'm gonna go with this is probably my most like Ken told me like before we did this not to lean too much on the jazz stuff because that'd be kind of obvious for me. But this is like the most hardcore jazz record I'm gonna show this week. But for guitar players, this
It's a
record's
good one.
so crazy, man. In general, I don't listen to Joe Pass as much as I would listen to like Jim Hall, just because, his playing is very, very bop oriented. It's very uh, deeply rooted in the bop tradition, versus like Jim Hall is very exploratory. He's got a lot of harmonies coming in from like 20th century classical music and stuff. But for just technique, holy shit, this record is like unbelievable. It's just him doing solo guitar. I think something happened where they didn't get the recording from the amp, but they had been recording his, like, just had a mic on this hollow body, so it's just the hollow body sound, which is pretty sweet. Yeah, it's just a staggering record. He just plays. It's hard to get this without the
Yeah, and
glare.
he's one of those guys, he's got a lot of records.
Yeah, but man, his technique and his language is just through the roof. So
if you've never listened to the stuff with Ella Fitzgerald,
oh yeah,
you gotta hear that.
killing.
Yeah,
Yeah,
that was some great stuff.
yeah.
But I would agree this is probably one of my favorites.
Hmm.
You know,
Yeah, this is essential. I mean, if you're a guitar player, but especially if you're a jazz guitar player, this is like should be first close up on the list. I had a lesson with
Yep.
Mike Stern, like at the end of last semester as like a present from the guitar department, and he was just like, "Man, you gotta be transcribing those Joe Pass solos, man. It's so important."
Yeah, like anybody else could play him.
Right, right. They're ridiculous.
You know,
Yeah.
yeah. Well, speaking of great jazz guitarists, this also kind of gets into that slightly country flavored jazz stuff.
Yeah.
Hank Garland, Jazz Winds from a New Direction. And this was 1961. Hank Garland had a really interesting and unique career in that mainly he played country. He was Patsy Cline's main guitarist and played on a lot of her classic sides like crazy.
Mm-hmm.
But he also played a lot of jazz stuff. So he wanted to do a solo record, got a deal with Columbia in '61, and recruited a young vibist that had never been recorded before. Gary Burton was 17 when he played on this record. In fact, I believe he was still in high school. They had to like wait for his semester to be over or
Yeah.
something.
And
so
he lived in a different state. Like he had to take a train down to record it or something. Yeah.
Yeah. So this was also Gary Burton's first record, if you can believe that. So
crazy.
this is it's jazz, but it's got a little bit of that chicken picking stuff going on, and really an absolutely stellar record. There's really nothing else like this. So this is a reissue done by the folks over at Speaker's Corner in Germany. They did an absolutely amazing version of this. It's the cleanest, best version I've ever heard. I had an original of this and I got rid of it because it didn't even compare to this. I don't know if you're familiar with Speaker's Corner, but they pick out classic records and they do these all analog, just beautiful versions. So this may be out of print. I don't know, but if you get a chance to find one of these on Speaker's Corner, it will blow your mind.
I'm gonna keep my eye out for that.
Yeah, I would say that this is one of the most studied jazz records of all time as far as jazz guitar goes, you know. And this guy had a really seeded kind of terrible ending in that I think he ended up in a insane asylum. There is a movie about his life called Crazy. And I dug around trying to find that. You know how it is when you own something, but you can't find it. It's like it's in a pile somewhere. But it's worth seeing the film. It's not a documentary, it's sort of a docudrama kind of thing.
Okay.
But yeah, Hank Garland was an amazing player. So.
Sweet. Well, for my next one, what's that? Oh, he's upset, Ken. He's upset because he's upset because you made me drop his record from my list because it was too obvious. He's yelling at me. I have the God of Guitar. He's upset with me, but that's okay. Let's see. Yeah, this is another kind of record that's it's sort of jazz, but it's not. I mean, there's some bebop on here, but it's really more of a rhythm and blues kind of funky record. This is the George Benson Cookbook with the George Benson Quartet. I think Lonnie Smith is on here. This is a weird pressing of it by Columbia. It's a collector's series, so it's a cool watercolor, but it's not as cool as the original cover. The original cover has like him and the group, and they're like standing with a bunch of like kitchen appliances.
Yeah, I've got it here somewhere.
I mean, if you can find it, that would be sweet, just to show them what it looks like. But
let me see if I can take it out here.
But this is very early on in George Benson's career. I feel like he's kind of underappreciated as a guitar player. Like I went to see him a few years ago. He was doing a double billing with Kenny G, which was cool. So I saw Kenny G. There we go. Yeah, that's the cover. And actually, I got to be honest, Kenny G put on a pretty dynamic performance. I mean, the music was bad, but you know.
I'll try to forget you said that.
They had good energy. He knows how to get people excited. You know what I mean? He walks around and he's got his hair. and he looks at the women and they freak out and he holds those long notes. Like, he's got it down.
But he's a detriment to jazz.
I know. Well, he's not really, there's nothing jazz about what he plays. But George
Yeah,
Benson.
but he thinks he's jazz.
I know.
Did you ever read the thing Pat Metheny wrote about him?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. But George Benson came out, and when he sang, the audience went crazy, but he would take these ridiculous solos. He's like 80 years old. He's shredding on the guitar. And everyone's like, oh, yeah, cool, all right. It's like they didn't realize that they were seeing one of the greatest guitar players of all time. It was so weird to me. Anyways, this is very early on in his
all they
career.
heard was on Broadway.
Right.
Right?
Yeah, probably. And the later stuff. Just in general, if you can find any of his early stuff when you're in a record store, like, you should snatch it up, because most of what you're going to find is like the later stuff, which is just all synthesizers and him singing like corny songs. I don't know, there's a whole other episode to be done on the strange career of George Benson, but these records are so cool. I mean, I'm very partial to the like the Breezin' era. Weekend in LA for me is like also one of the top guitar records. But this is like, he's super young. He like basically learned to play bebop while on the road with brother, who was it?
McDuff.
Brother Jack McDuff, yeah. Like he hired him because he could play R&B really well, and then on the road realized he couldn't play changes, and he's like, oh, I gotta fire this guy. But people like were so crazy about like the energy that he brought to his playing that he had to keep him on.
I thought I read something that Jack McDuff maybe saw him on a street corner playing or something, and like really liked him and invited him to sit in.
I think, well, he like brought him over to his hotel room. He's like, play me something. And he played some, also, for anyone who's interested. Where is it? I have his autobiography here somewhere. But he's got a cool autobiography. But this is a cool record. There's like a little, there's a couple blues. There's like a couple blues tunes. I think there's one like rhythm changes, but it's mostly like more greasy, organ-oriented stuff. Organ is in the.
Who's playing organ on there?
Lonnie Smith.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So some of the cool tracks on here, like Bossa Rocca is pretty sweet. All of Me is the only vocal on here. Probably maybe the first vocal he recorded. I think he had like maybe one, at least one on each of these, guitar records. Borgia Stick's pretty sweet. But man, he plays so much shit on this record. So yeah, George Benson, I think I've said enough about him. Well, I haven't said enough about him, but I've said enough about him for these purposes.
So I'm going to go in a different direction. Moving on to 1963, John Fahey, Death Chants, Breakdowns, and Military Waltzes. This was one of the first fingerstyle records I ever got. Actually walked into my record store in the town I went to college, and they knew I was a player, and I was kind of a bluegrass player back then, but they just bought a bunch of records from the radio station,
Mm-hmm.
and they used to trade stuff and give them credit. And the guy pointed out all these John Fahey records. He's like, you might like this guy. And I thought the covers were cool. So
yeah,
grabbed a bunch of them. This is one of them, and changed my life.
Mm.
I had heard a little bit of Leo Kottke by that point and stuff like that, because he was already on the scene, and I had heard a little bit of Fahey, but I didn't really know much about him.
Mm-hmm.
So this is his second record. This is not a first pressing, but it's maybe a second pressing, the Orange Tacoma label. So great fingerstyle record. There's a lot of traditional kind of bluesy stuff, ragtime stuff. Take a look at that baby. I love the first recording of America is on here. His America.
Mm.
Sunflower River Blues, which is maybe one of his known or more known pieces. Spanish Dance, which was a takeoff on Spanish Fandango. So any John Fahey record from the early period is worth picking up. Basically anything on Tacoma Records, which was actually his record label. So not only was he recording and doing all this fingerstyle stuff, but he was finding other players, and so he signed Leo Kottke and Robbie Basho and Michael Gurian and a bunch of blues guys too. So he was actually kind of a handler for Buka White and Skip James. So yeah,
Cool.
John Fahey was the godfather of fingerstyle.
I'll have to check that out.
Old school fingerstyle.
Cool. And now for something completely different. This is like all the way on the other side of the spectrum. You can't have a badass guitar record blog without talking about this guy. This is Jeff Beck. And this is Blow by Blow, which is a record he made probably mid-70s, 75, because he was kind of trying to ride the wave of the Mahavishnu Orchestra kind of thing. I think he toured, he was on tour, his group was on tour with John McLaughlin, which is where he met Jan Hammer, but I think this is maybe before he was touring with them. Obviously he's got a lot of great, more blues oriented records too, but this one for me is, I just love listening to this record. I listen to this all the time. Some of the cool songs on here, I mean, the highlight of the record for me is like the tracks Air Blower and Scatterbrain, which are really cool. Like the first one is like well, you check it out, listen to it. I'm not going to tell you what the song is. And then he's got kind of one of his more famous songs, Because We've Ended as Lovers, which he dedicates to Roy Buchanan, and it was written by Stevie Wonder.
Written by Jeff Beck?
No, Stevie Wonder. It was written because there's a lot of lore and stuff that goes along with this record, but the story is, I think Stevie wrote Superstition for Jeff Beck when he was in, he has this like power trio, I can't remember their name, but they only had one record and they had Superstition on it, but Stevie released his version first and that became the iconic version. And I think so he felt bad, so he gave him the song Because We've Ended as Lovers. And he's just got this great wailing guitar solo on here. And Thelonious is a cool track, probably named after Thelonious Monk. Freeway Jam is kind of, one of his famous songs. And Diamond Dust, which is the closer of the album, I think is kind of an underrated track. It's very moody, really great melody, really great harmony. And also, this record was produced by George Martin, who also wrote string arrangements, which for the most part, I really, really like. There's like one on the solo for Scatterbrain, his keyboardist, Max Middleton, has taken this ripping solo, and then George Martin puts these like really complicated string things over it, and you can't hear what the keyboard is playing. But aside from that, it's a really like lush, fun record. Lots of cool sounds, lots of great guitar sounds, very funky. And the two records that came after it, Wired, and I think
There and Back,
and also the live one, I think Jeff Beck with the Jan Hammer group, which gets a lot of criticism. A lot of people don't like that record, but I think it's really great. That's when he met Jan Hammer, basically stole him from John McLaughlin. Yeah, so this is great record.
So speaking of Tacoma releases and John Fahey, John Fahey actually signed Leo Kottke in 1969, and this is called 6 and 12 string guitar, but it's also known as the Armadillo record, and just a revolutionary fingerstyle record. As the title indicates, he played 6 string, but he also played a lot of 12 string and played a lot of slide, and just an absolute classic record to this day. So I've got a couple versions of it here. This is the orange label Tacoma. And then I believe this is the second pressing. And then the first pressing label looks like this. It's a black label Tacoma.
Mm.
So yeah, amazing level of playing. And again, John P, he produced this. So another classic Tacoma Records title.
Nice. Yeah, that's a cool record. For my last pick, I'm kind of changing it up. This is my only like recent record that I'm going to be talking about. Excuse me. This is Modern Lore by Julian Lage. I talked about him maybe on our first or second vlog with he's also plays with
Nels Cline.
Nels Cline. There we go, in the Nels Cline 4. And also they have got a couple duo records which are really cool. And this is him. He's got Scott Coley on bass, who's unbelievable bass player. I think he played, he's not on, I don't think he's on this Jim Hall record, but I think he played with Jim Hall. Hold on, let me look real quick. Who's on this one? I think he's more recent. Yeah, he's more recent. But he plays with a lot of people. Kenny Wilson, who's really great. And it's kind of in the context of a jazz group, but it's not really a jazz record. It's very country oriented, very roots oriented. And there's also there's just like little tiny flashes of like Ornette Coleman type stuff thrown in, which I think is, what track is that? I don't remember which one it is. Earth Science, I think, is kind of like a free jazz sort of thing. But he's just got this really, really warm Telecaster sound, and he really, like, he's got some crazy technique, but he only brings it out, like, he only really goes like crazy maybe like a couple bars a song, and the rest is just around making really gorgeous music. So this is one of his more recent ones. He just came out with one called Love Hurts after the Graham Parsons song, but this one is also really, really great. And it came with a poster. I don't have it up right now, but as far as new players go, he's obviously he's the guy. He's amazing. So yeah, check him out, Julian Lage.
So I have two more picks.
Oh, who also just connecting. Wait, what? Oh, I don't know. But just a connection. So Gary Burton played with what's his name again? The guy, the record.
Hank Garland.
Hank Garland, when he was, like in high school, and Julian Lage played with Gary Burton when he was like 17. That was kind of his.
Yeah, Gary Burton had a lot of great players.
Definitely.
Larry Coryell got his start.
Yep.
With Gary Burton.
Yeah, Matheny, Mick Goodrick, Kurt.
All the ECM guys.
Pretty much, yeah.
So I got two more. I don't know how that happened. You might have to show your Hendrix record.
Yeah, maybe.
I don't know.
I'll show something.
All right. So Chester and Lester.
Yeah.
What a record. This came out in 1975, and it was kind of a get together in the studio. These guys knew each other forever and ever, and basically it's really light, fun. They just got together, played some standards. Moonglow is on here. It Had to Be You. Favorites of my trio. Avalon, Birth of the Blues, Someday Sweetheart, Deed I Do. So it's all fun, standard kind of stuff. But how could it be bad with these two guys?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it's just a super fun record, and technique literally spilling out everywhere. Even though these guys were old, they still could play. Unlike anybody else on this planet, these guys, these were the two guys,
Mhm.
you know.
Yeah.
So they did do a follow up.
Oh, I was gonna add that
Oh,
in
you
as my
got it?
seventh. Yeah.
Right.
Well, I'll hold up the back. You hold up the front.
So follow up in 1978. 3 years later, Guitar Monsters, Limehouse Blues, I Want to Be Happy, Over the Rainbow, Lazy River. Just another great group of standards, you know.
Mm-hmm.
So both of these are definitely worth having. Even if you're not into this kind of stuff, even if you're a heavy metal guy, you still need to listen to these records.
Yeah.
I mean, they're just so good.
Yeah, that was gonna be my. I was gonna try to surprise you. I mean, do I need to mention? Are you experienced? Do people really? I mean, I don't know. I feel
You
like,
don't need to.
you know what? I heard somebody singing. Here's the thing. I heard somebody singing "Electric Ladyland." Like a friend of mine at Berkeley. I'm like, oh yeah, that's a killing record. And she had heard it from some other band that I hadn't heard of, and she didn't know that it was a Jimi Hendrix song.
Cassandra Wilson, maybe.
Maybe, but I don't know. I'm gonna talk about it. I'm gonna talk about it anyway. He's yelling. He's been yelling at me this whole time. This, like, I mean, there's so just not, if we ignore his guitar solos, this is still an amazing guitar record. You know what I mean? Like Third Stone from the Sun, obviously a pivotal moment, I think, for most guitar players. On like science fiction on guitar, pretty much. But
Well, compositionally, there was nothing else like it.
yeah.
From a production perspective, there was nothing else like it.
Right. Technique.
I mean,
feedback.
any front you want to talk about,
Yeah.
it was revolutionary,
right,
for its time.
And it's a science fiction song.
Yeah.
Like it's about aliens come to Earth, and they like send down their probe, and they realize that the smartest animal on the planet is a chicken, so they blow it up. That's what it's about. But also, you know, Purple Haze is pretty famous. Hey Joe. But there's some really great tracks on here that are show off his softer, more
romantic.
I'm trying to remember
Emotional.
who was his big influence from the Impressions. Curtis Mayfield, like his Curtis Mayfield kind of side, which would be like May This Be Love is gorgeous, and The Wind Cries Mary has that really iconic squiggly kind of sound. R&B. So yeah, I mean, I feel like we should be talking about Hendrix more. I think just because he's kind of the guitar player, I don't know, I just don't hear people talking about him that much. So this is the guy. Say hi. Are you experienced?
Okay, I got one more pick, because I couldn't do this without showing this guy. Michael Hedges, Breakfast in the Field. And he had a lot of great stuff too, but this is the one that totally changed everything. I think Aerial Boundaries was amazing as well. So remember I was telling you that ECM had German pressings and they had American pressings.
Mm-hmm.
This is on a label called Windham Hill. And these guys did some pretty cutting edge stuff in the 80s. This came out in 1981. And these guys did American pressings, but they also did Japanese pressings. So if you look around, you can find a slightly better Japanese version of all of these Michael Hedges releases. These were kind of like ECM. They all came in like really heavy sleeves, but talking about the music, technically there's never been anybody like this guy, and there may never be again. He was the first guy to really kind of do open tunings in a really extreme way. He was a fingerstylist. He played harp guitar. He actually played some electric as well, but his compositions were incredible. He was actually trained as a keyboardist. Went to the Peabody Institute, studied electronic music on keyboard, and then became the world's greatest fingerstyle player. So it's, again, the kind of music anybody would love. Michael Manring plays bass, fretless bass. So actually George Winston's on here on a track doing piano as well. But the vast majority of it is solo fingerstyle guitar tracks played live and recorded beautifully. So if you don't know Michael Hedges, check out this one or Aerial Boundaries. I mean, this totally changed my life. I was lucky enough to see this guy play live like 4 times. And man, the last time I saw him was right before he died, and I couldn't even get up after the show. I couldn't even stand up.
Wow.
I mean, I literally had to sit there for like 20 minutes just to get my shit together because I had never seen, it was just amazing. So this guy takes a 6-string guitar and makes an orchestra out of it in front of your eyes, like literally live in front of you. So Michael Hedges, Breakfast in the Field on Wyndham Hill Records.
So Ken, if someone's feeling like a shortage of guitar vinyl in their homes, what would they do to like remedy that situation?
Well, what I would do is I would pack a lunch, take off Friday, and come to Paramount Record Shop, spend the day. Actually, we're open noon to 5 on Fridays. We're open 11 to 4 on Saturdays, and we encourage people to come in and dig. We have a lot of records, a lot of good records.
And bring a mask.
Bring a mask. Yeah, masks are required these days because it's the pandemic era.
Yes, it is. So, yeah, bring a mask, people. Just do it. All right.
So I don't know what we're doing next week. Do you?
No, I haven't thought about that.
We'll have to figure it out.
We'll figure it out. We'll leave it a mystery. It'll be the mystery. Maybe here's what we'll do. Maybe we'll each pick out like a few records that don't have anything to do with anything, like just regular records, and see if we can surprise each other. So not tell each other what the records are.
Yeah,
that might be interesting.
I might be up for that.
Yeah. Okay.
Just weird stuff.
Yeah.
All right. See you next week.
All right. Bye, everybody. Stay safe.